You'll never win until you accept being a loser. Taoist truth revealed. What if I told you that your obsession with success, winning and achievement is the very thing holding you back? That trying so hard to be somebody, to be admired, respected, or important is precisely what keeps you feeling like a failure, no matter how much you accomplish. It's a paradox, and one that Taoist philosophy has been exploring for thousands of years. We live in a world that worships winners. From the moment we're old enough to understand language, we're taught to strive, get the best grades, land the best job, be the best version of yourself. Winning becomes our default mode of existence, and losing is a nightmare. We avoid it at all costs, because to lose is to fail, and to fail is to be seen as worthless, right? But here's the thing: the more we chase success, the more we build our lives around fear. We fear failure. We fear being seen as weak, mediocre, or irrelevant. And that fear drives us to push harder, to compete endlessly, to constantly compare ourselves to others. It's exhausting, and even when we win, when we achieve that goal, land that promotion, or gain that recognition, it never feels like enough. We're always looking ahead to the next win, terrified of slipping back into loser territory. Taoist philosophy flips this entire mindset on its head. Instead of clinging to the idea of winning, Taoism invites us to embrace losing not as an endpoint, but as a way of being. In the Tao Te Ching, Laozi says, "The soft overcomes the hard. The humble overcomes the proud." This isn't just poetic wisdom, it's a radical redefinition of power, success, and meaning. It's an invitation to stop fighting so hard against life and to let life carry you instead. Here's a question to sit with: what does it even mean to be a loser? Is it someone who doesn't achieve society's version of success? Someone who doesn't stand out, doesn't win awards, doesn't make millions? If that's the definition, then aren't most of us losers by default? And if that's the case, why are we so afraid of it? Why do we spend our lives running from something that is, in many ways, inevitable? This fear of being a loser comes from ego. The ego is obsessed with labels: winner, loser, good, bad, successful, failure. It's constantly measuring, comparing, and judging, trying to position itself as higher, better, more. But Taoism teaches us that the ego's obsession with winning is a trap. The more you identify with being a winner, the more fragile you become, because now your entire sense of self depends on maintaining that status. The moment you lose, or even feel like you might lose, you crumble.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
But what if you didn't have to play this game? What if you could step off the hamster wheel of success and failure entirely? What if you could stop defining yourself by how others see you, or by how much you achieve, and start living as if none of it mattered? Not in a nihilistic way, but in a liberating way, a way that allows you to exist fully and freely, without the pressure to constantly prove yourself. Taoism reminds us that life isn't a competition. It's not about reaching the top of some imaginary ladder. Life is more like a river. It flows. It moves effortlessly, without needing to prove anything. And when you stop trying to swim upstream, when you stop resisting the natural flow of life, you find a kind of peace that no amount of winning can ever give you. Here's another question: who would you be if you stopped caring about success? Would you still pursue your goals? Would you still wake up with purpose? Or would you let go of the endless striving and simply exist? These are terrifying questions because they challenge the very foundation of how we've been taught to live. But they're also freeing because they open the door to a new way of being, one that isn't defined by fear, ego, or the need to win. Losing, in the Taoist sense, isn't about giving up. It's about letting go. Letting go of the need to control everything. Letting go of the need to be seen as successful. letting go of the stories you tell yourself about what your life should look like. And when you let go, something magical happens. You realize that life doesn't need to be won to be meaningful. The river flows whether you fight it or not. The question is, will you let it carry you? The freedom of being nobody, why embracing failure leads to true power. What if being a nobody was the most liberating thing you could ever achieve? Let's think about this for a moment. Society constantly pushes us toward the idea that we must be somebody. We're told to carve out a name, to build a legacy, to leave a mark. But have you ever stopped to ask, who am I trying to impress? And why does it matter so much? The pressure to be somebody is exhausting, isn't it? And for what? To be remembered? To feel worthy? To prove to others, and maybe to yourself, that your life has meaning? Here's a secret the world doesn't want you to know: being somebody is not where freedom lies. It's a trap. When you commit to being somebody, you become a prisoner of that identity. You have to maintain it. Every decision becomes a calculation. Will this make me look better? Will this keep me on top? And so, instead of living authentically, you start performing. You become an actor in your own life, playing a role that, deep down, you may not even believe in. But what happens when you embrace being nobody? What happens when you allow yourself to fail, to be unremarkable, to slip beneath the radar? Strangely, this is where true power begins. Because when you stop trying to be somebody, you stop being afraid of losing. There's nothing left to maintain, nothing to protect. You're free to simply exist, to live without the burden of proving your worth. And in that space you find a kind of peace that the ambitious will never know. Taoism teaches us that striving is the root of suffering. When you're constantly reaching for more success, more recognition, more validation, you're always in a state of lack. You're telling yourself over and over that who you are right now isn't enough. But when you stop striving, when you accept where you are and who you are in this moment, you discover something profound you were never lacking to begin with. The need to be somebody was just an illusion, a story your mind created to keep you chasing after a version of happiness that doesn't exist. Think about this. Have you ever noticed that the people who seem the most content aren't the ones who are constantly winning? They're not the ones shouting their achievements from the rooftops. They're the quiet ones, the humble ones, the people who have learned to let life flow through them instead of fighting against it. They've discovered the secret that Taoism has been teaching for centuries: the less you resist, the more life gives you. The less you need to be somebody, the more you become yourself. Here's the paradox: when you stop trying to win, you often end up winning in ways that actually matter, not in the shallow, external sense of success, but in the deeper, internal sense of fulfillment. When you let go of the need to impress others, you start doing things because they genuinely matter to you, not because they'll earn you praise. You start living for yourself, not for the image you're trying to project. And in that authenticity, people are naturally drawn to you, not because you're trying to be somebody, but because you're not. Let me ask you something: what would happen if you failed spectacularly? Not just a small failure, but a colossal one: losing a job, a relationship, or a dream you've held on to for years. Would it destroy you? Or would it free you? Would it strip away the false identities you've built, leaving you with nothing but the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are? And if that happened, would it really be so bad? Or would it be the beginning of something real? Failure has a way of humbling us, of reminding us that we're not as in control as we like to think. And that's a good thing. When you fail, you're forced to confront the parts of yourself that you've been avoiding. You're forced to let go of your ego, to accept that you're human, and to find meaning in something deeper than external success. Failure, in this sense, is a gift. It strips away the illusions and leaves you with the truth. And the truth is, you don't need to be anybody. You just need to be. Taoism teaches that the universe operates through balance, the yin and the yang, the soft and the hard, the light and the dark. Winning and losing are just two sides of the same coin, and the harder you cling to one, the more you invite the other. But when you stop clinging altogether, when you allow yourself to lose, to let go, to embrace the flow of life, you find a kind of strength that doesn't come from winning. It comes from surrender, from accepting that you're not in control, and that's okay. So, here's my challenge to you: stop trying to be somebody. Stop running from failure. Stop clinging to the idea that your worth depends on your achievements. Instead, ask yourself, what would it feel like to be nobody? To let go of all the expectations, the comparisons, the need to win. And if you can answer that honestly, you might find that being nobody is the most powerful thing you could ever be. The art of losing, how letting go reveals your true self. When we think about losing, we often see it as the ultimate failure. Losing means falling short, being humiliated, or being left behind. But what if losing wasn't the end? What if it was the beginning? Taoist philosophy invites us to reimagine losing, not as a curse or a weakness, but as an art, a practice that strips away the illusions of control and ego to reveal something far more profound: your true self. Let's dig into this a little deeper. Losing forces us to confront a truth we spend most of our lives running from: we're not invincible. No matter how hard we try, no matter how much we plan, there will always be things beyond our control. Relationships end. Jobs dissolve. Dreams fall apart. And when these things happen, our first instinct is to fight against them. We scramble to fix, to recover, to get back to winning. But Taoism teaches us that this resistance only deepens our suffering. The harder we cling to what we've lost, the more we lose ourselves in the process. The art of losing begins with surrender. Not the kind of surrender that means giving up, but the kind that means letting go of your need to control the outcome, letting go of your attachment to how life should be, letting go of the story you've been telling yourself about who you are and what you deserve. This kind of surrender isn't easy. It feels counterintuitive, even reckless. But in surrendering, we make space for something new. When you stop fighting life, you allow it to flow. And in that flow, you discover a kind of freedom that winning could never give you. Here's the paradox: losing is often the very thing that helps us find what we've been searching for all along. When you lose the job you thought defined you, you're forced to ask yourself, who am I without this title? When a relationship ends, you have to confront the question, what do I really want? And when a dream collapses, you're left with the opportunity to imagine an entirely new path. Losing strips away the layers of identity we've built around ourselves: the job, the relationship, the achievements, and leaves us with the raw, unfiltered truth of who we are. And that truth, while uncomfortable, is also liberating. But here's a question to sit with: why are we so afraid of losing in the first place? Is it because we've been conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to our success? Or is it because losing forces us to face the unknown, and the unknown terrifies us? Taoism teaches us to embrace the unknown, to see it not as a void but as a fertile space where growth and transformation happen. When you lose, you're not stepping into nothingness, you're stepping into possibility. The art of losing also teaches us humility. There's a quiet strength in admitting that we don't have all the answers, that we're not always in control. Humility isn't about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking less about yourself. When you lose, your ego takes a hit, and while that might sting in the moment, it's also a gift. It reminds you that you're part of something much larger than yourself, that your value isn't defined by your victories or your failures. You are enough simply because you exist. So, The next time you find yourself on the losing end, ask yourself, what is this teaching me? Instead of resisting, lean into the experience. Let it humble you. Let it strip away the illusions of who you think you're supposed to be. And in that emptiness, in that raw space of losing, you might just discover who you really are. The strength of stillness, finding peace in the chaos of losing, when everything falls apart, when you're standing in the rubble of what you thought your life would be. There's a natural instinct to panic, to scramble, to fix it, rebuild it, or at least distract yourself from the discomfort of what's happening. Losing feels chaotic because it shakes the foundations of our identity. We feel exposed, vulnerable, and small. But what if losing wasn't an experience to escape? What if losing was an invitation to stop running and instead, to simply be still? Taoism often speaks of the power of stillness, of yielding to life rather than constantly striving against it. It teaches us that the greatest strength is not in resistance, but in acceptance. Think of water. It seems soft, weak, and formless, yet it carves mountains and shapes the land. It doesn't fight the rocks in its path, it flows around them. It adapts, it lets go, and in doing so it becomes unstoppable. Losing asks us to be like water, to stop resisting the chaos and to rest in the stillness beneath it. But stillness isn't just about inaction. It's about presence. When you lose, the temptation is to distract yourself, to numb the pain by filling the void with noise, whether it's work, entertainment, or the endless scroll of social media. Stillness asks something harder of you: to sit with discomfort, to feel it fully, without judgment, to let the chaos rage around you while you remain grounded in the moment. It's in this stillness that we begin to see clearly, to understand that losing isn't the end of the world, it's simply a shift, a realignment of the path we're on. Here's the thing: losing doesn't define you. It strips away the illusions, yes, but what's left is the essence of who you are. And when you're still, when you stop running from the discomfort, you begin to reconnect with that essence. You realize that your worth isn't tied to what you achieve or what you lose. It's something deeper, something unshakable. Here's a question to ask yourself: what am I afraid to lose? And why does it scare me so much? Often, the things we fear losing the most are tied to our ego, our reputation, our image, our sense of control. But when you let go of those attachments, when you allow yourself to lose them, you find something astonishing: peace. Not the fleeting peace of temporary victories, but a lasting peace that comes from knowing you are enough. Even in the chaos, stillness isn't passive, it's transformative. It's where clarity emerges, where truth rises to the surface. And when you embrace the stillness of losing, you don't just survive the chaos, you transcend it. You find strength not in fighting against life, but in flowing with it. In losing, you discover the power of simply being,